Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. I want to tell you a story about the perfect golf trade, and it occurred last year at the US Masters. If you're interested in learning more about BetAngel, its tools and the opportunities they present, then why not visit betangel.com today and download a free trial. So you've seen me discuss the US Masters in previous blog posts or articles or videos and so on and so forth. And the reason that I love this particular tournament is because it's played at the same course year after year after year. So that gives you a really good idea of how the course is likely to play, and you know where the easy holes are and where the harder holes are and so on and so forth. And that obviously brings you huge advantages when trading. But it's important to note that it brings you those advantages on different days. So a 4-day tournament is played, the first 2 days are played sort of in random order, and then the field is cut, and then they change the playing order of the players on days 3 and 4 over the weekend, because they want the tournament to end so that the winner is coming up very close to the end of the tournament, and you know, can be playing up the 18th green, everybody's on the 18th green working with, and so on and so forth. And that's how it's structured. But this brings up opportunities for you as well. So on days 1 and 2, you know, if there's an early leader in the clubhouse, and then there's a good player coming around to an easier part of the course where they're likely to pick up shots, then of course if they pick up those shots, the price on the leader in the clubhouse is going to drift, and vice versa. So you can sort of trade it that way. However, when you're at the weekend at a golf tournament, then all of the players are going out in reverse order. So the worst players get out early in the morning and they finish their rounds, and the best players finish last and come up to the 18th to collect their prize. So in 2016, we had this situation where we're going into the last day, and the first thing to note on all of these is the gap between the leader and the rest of them is a fair indicator of who's likely to be in contention. So on day 1, I'm just looking at the stats here, 90% of winners are within 5 shots of the leader at Augusta. And a similar number on day 2, but obviously it compacts a little bit. And then when you get to day 3, you're really looking at sort of 3 or 4 shots from the lead. It gives you the opportunity to chase down and win the tournament. But obviously, you know, the higher up you are on that, the better. So when there was no deficit, in other words, you were the leader, about 55% of players go and win it on the last day when they are the leader. And about 14% are within a shot of the leader, and then it's about 10% for 2 and 3 shots. So the situation we had at Augusta last year was that Danny Willett was 3 shots behind the leader. I'm just checking my stats here. He was 3 shots behind the leader, which was Jordan Spieth. And he basically had a shot at winning it if he could get around and didn't make too many mistakes. But as with all things, it's actually quite difficult to be consistent, as any golfer will tell you. And as a consequence, you know, you're always in with a shout if there's a problem with the guy that's in the lead. If he makes a couple of bad shots or sends the ball into the water, you know, suddenly there's a whole bunch of people in contention. And also, Danny Willett was out before Jordan Spieth. So basically, Spieth was in control of everything in terms of seeing all of the people going in front of him. So he knew what he had to do in order to stay in contention and to carry off the green jacket at the end of the tournament, and $1.8 million as well, of course. So the interesting thing about Danny Willett was he was playing very consistently all the way through, and he was picking up shots here and there, and basically he kept picking up the odd birdie throughout the tournament, and he actually ended up on the final day actually completing a round at 5 under, which is a pretty good round at Augusta. But he was pretty consistent, didn't drop a shot at a single hole, was just playing percentage golf and doing what he could to put himself into contention. So he was doing what he could. On the other hand, Jordan Spieth was 3 shots in front, and I mean basically he could probably win the tournament with that, but realised obviously that he would require 1 or 2 shots extra to be able to definitively clinch the championship. So Willett was off in front and Spieth was following, and as Willett started to climb up the leaderboard, there were other players like Lee Westwood that were coming into contention as well, put a little bit of pressure on Jordan Spieth. But you know, Jordan Spieth is a good player, and in fact as we came to the turn, and the turn in golf and non-golfers is when you reach 9 holes, you basically go out in 9 and then back in 9, so they call that the turn. But basically, as he reached the turn, he picked up a shot on the second, which is not unusual at Augusta because that is one of the easier holes where you would expect to pick up a shot. But as he reached, and then he dropped a shot on the fifth, but as he reached the sixth, then he went birdie, 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 birdie. He got 4 birdies in a row, which was phenomenal. And so he went through the turn with a birdie on the ninth. But at that particular point, the ninth hole is the last hole that could be considered sort of parable. And when you get into the 10th, 11th and 12th, those are much harder holes. Those are some of the harder holes across the course. In fact, if you look at holes 4, I'm just checking my stats here, to 6, they're also quite hard as well. So we did pretty well to get through that and pick up a shot over those 4. But when we get to Amen Corner at Augusta, that's generally considered to be one of the harder parts of the course. So anyway, Spieth arrives there 5 under. He gets to hole 11 at 5 under and tees up his shot and basically messes it up. He drops a shot on the 11th. So when he turns up at the 12th, he basically realizes that Willett has gone through and is plain sailing. Spieth is still 5 under for the entire tournament, but people are getting a little bit closer to him. And when he tees off at the 12th, anybody who watches the Masters or is a golfer knows what the 12th is like. Basically, it's a par 3, you have to tee off, you go over a bit of water, and then you have to land on a green that's incredibly long and thin. If you're short, you end up in the water. If you're long, you end up in the bunker. So it's a bit of a nightmare hole. It's certainly something I wouldn't look forward to attempting to play. And Spieth teed off and sent his ball into the water. So immediately, you know, you've got a serious problem there because you're going to have to place your ball and play 3 off the tee. So he did that, and he was going to have to take a bogey or perhaps a double bogey. And he took his second shot, got underneath it, and fell short basically, and went in the water again to gasps from the surrounding crowds, etc. So at this particular point, all of a sudden, he's you know, in real trouble, and he needs to play the next shot reasonably well. So he plays the next shot and sends it long and into the bunker. So he has an absolute mare at hole 12. Now, prior to playing hole 12, his price had basically moved to 109, and plenty of money matched at 110. And one of the bits of advice that I give, especially where you've got a player in front that has already completed those holes successfully, and you've got a player coming behind him that has to go through those difficult holes, it's sometimes worth a little lay on those guys on the basis that if they drop a shot at someone, then the odds are going to spike up as the other player comes into contention. So naturally, with Spieth at 109, he's 5 under and still 3 shots in front of everybody else with 6 holes to play. That price was probably fairly reasonable for him at that particular point. But the anticipation was that maybe he would bogey, or perhaps double bogey, a hole, and that would send his price out a little bit. But in fact, he ended up carding a 7 on the 12th, which was a complete disaster because he went from 5 over to 1 under, and suddenly, with Willett a few holes ahead, was suddenly the tournament leader. And all of a sudden, you know, you could realised that if Danny Willett could just hold it together, Spieth would have to perform a miracle, because the last 3 holes at Augusta have the potential to drop a shot, and indeed Spieth did. He dropped a shot on the 17th. You know, it was a bit of an ask to be able to turn things around in those final few holes. So the setup was good. The price on Spieth was very low, and the opportunity to lay him came around that cluster of holes where potentially he had the opportunity to drop a shot, and if he would have dropped a shot, you would have got a little bit of a gain out of that. But in fact, on this particular occasion, everything lined up perfectly, and he completely messed up, which is not unknown at Augusta. There have been these occasions when Nick Faldo won at Augusta. He was the benefactor of that sort of thing. And we've seen this happen before as well, repeatedly, at a number of different players over a number of years. So a little bit of luck required, but of course, you know, Spieth's price went from 109 shooting out because he made such an unbelievable hash of it. And for anybody that was laying Spieth at 109, 110 or around that area, it just became a straight lay because the price moved so far that even with hedging you would have got the majority of your profit anyway. So we had a number of factors here. We had the order of the card, the fact that Willett had gone through, the fact that Willett was only 3 from the lead at any one particular point or another, and it only needed a little mistake from Spieth while he was playing through those harder holes to be able to bring that trade around. But if you look at the setup of it, and I know it's easy to look at things retrospectively, but it was pretty much the perfect setup. If you're looking at holes sort of 4 to 8, and then again you look at holes 10 to 12, I'm going to have to refer to my notes here, and 16 to 18. These are holes where traditionally players have drop shots repeatedly, and there are areas in between those where they do, or they're more likely to gain shots. But it's around those periods that you want to get active and involved in the market. And with players in front of him having already gone through that, it was a good opportunity to lay Spieth at very, very low odds. And that's sort of almost the perfect trade that you could possibly do in golf. If you attempt to do this at other times, you have to factor in what's happening elsewhere on the golf course and who's doing what and when and stuff like that. But on this particular occasion, as he came round to the harder part of the course, getting in a low lay on Spieth was quite clearly an option because you wouldn't have much downside, and if you did make a mistake you'd have huge upside. And that's in fact what happened, much to the delight of Danny Willett, who became the first British guy to win at Augusta for some time. I can't actually remember when the last one was. So yeah, you know, will we see a repeat this year? Probably not, but it's a good way of illustrating the sort of activity that happens in a golf tournament and how you can take advantage of it based upon the way that the game is played and the way that the course plays. That can produce some wonderful opportunities. Anyhow, I hope that we see some more this year.